Hello everybody. I've been tagged by Si in a 12 favourite photos from last year tag, and that's actually quite a tricky thing for me. If I sound a bit funny, I'm recovering from a thing that we're not allowed to talk about. Nearly got to 3 years without catching it, so I'm quite pleased with that, but gutted that I got it anyway. So recovering from that, so apologies for that. But the reason it's a bit tricky is I've got into taking a lot of photos, and I do it now mostly on this format, negatives. Good old-fashioned negatives. Shooting cameras like this, my personal favourite travel camera, little 1950s folder, fully manual, obviously, no autofocus, nothing, but beautiful little camera. Cheap East German SLR from back when there was an East Germany. Japanese cameras with Russian lenses on. The occasional photo taken with this, a 15-year-old, one of the photos I'm going to show you was taken with this, a 15-year-old Pro DSLR. And photos taken with this, forgive the fact it doesn't have a lens on at the moment because I've put it on another large format camera. This is a large format 100-year-old wood and brass camera. So how do you begin to select 12 best photos or favourite photos? Well, and why am I shooting them on film? I mean, why? Firstly, the challenge of it. I was, during this thing we're not supposed to really talk about, I was given 2 old film cameras, and I hadn't shot film since everyone shot film. You know, we all shot it because that's how you got photos and that's how you got memories. And it's all about making memories. And I've lost an awful lot of photos since the digital age appeared. They're trapped on laptops that don't work anymore, or the hard drives failed, or the files got corrupted, or whatever. But in the last year, I personally have developed and printed photographs and given them as gifts for members of my family. Of, you know, my father, who is now just about coming up 81. I developed and printed a photograph from a negative of him when he was about 5 years old. So that negative is at least 75 years old. It may be even slightly older than that. There is a permanence to that, and in the way we live at the minute, there isn't much of a permanence to anything. YouTube videos, YouTube channels get deleted, they disappear. So it's kind of nice to have that analog sort of thing, you know. So yeah, it's become a bit of an obsession. But anyway, I've had an attempt at choosing 12. They're not my best because I can't define what my best is, and I'm just learning anyway. We're all learning all the time, but with this whole photography thing, I very, very quickly got a massive amount of confidence because I learnt so much so quickly. and I was right at the top of my game. Oh, brilliant! Yes, I know what I'm doing now. I can sunny 16 exposures. I can go out with a camera, stand there and go, that looks like f8, 1/25 of a second. Click. Yeah, brilliant, perfect. Get a perfect exposure. Wow! Suddenly, I thought I was a god of photography. A little while after that, you have a massive crash. You realise you don't know anything. You don't know anything. There's so many videos, channels out there talking about photography, and they don't know anything. But they don't know anything. And so it's only when you start really learning something that you realise just how little you know and how much more there is to learn. It's a life learning thing. I'll give you an example. When someone goes on a holiday, let's say they go to Santorini, right? Go to the island of Santorini for a week, and then they come back, and then their family say to them, "Oh, how was Greece?" And they go, "Oh yeah, Greece was good. Yeah, we've done Greece now though. We've done it." It's like they've been there, they know all about it. They don't need to go again, you know. From my videos about Old Allens, I've discovered Old Allens is a very, very small area of land. Very small area of land. And I have learned I could take a lifetime of study of Old Allens, just that small patch of land, and I would not know everything there is to know about it. I could never know everything there is to know about it. And photography is like that. So this really simple idea of what are 12 of your best photos has become a bit of a head thing for me. While I've had nothing much to do with COVID, I've really thought about it a lot. And in the last few days, I've printed out a few photos. Now these aren't the ones I've selected, but these are, you know, this is Cornwall. It was taken on that little folding camera that I showed you. Some teasels in the snow, recent snow that we had, frost, hard frost. Spinnaker Tower in Portsmouth, also taken on a folding camera. The Word of God, a Bible in a church. Yeah. I mean, this is what I mean. These photos I've printed out, they've all got things wrong with them. None of them are perfect. None of them are great. That's a local landscape scene. I'll show this one a bit quick. This is Mary. You haven't seen Mary like that before, but that's Mary. Shot at a local studio just the other week. That was my my birthday treat. That's the lifeboat station in Cornwall again. Spinnaker Tower again. Boat in Portsmouth Harbour. Yeah. Any one of those could be my favourite or best, but they're not the ones I've chosen. I'll get onto them now with you. Okay, so there's no order to this, and there's also 13 because I can't count. But there's a reason behind all of them. So, number 1. My mate, Chris Cooper, outside his shop. Chris, I met him when I lived in Aylesbury. I've not long moved to Aylesbury, and I was a bit lost, to be honest. It's around about the time I started the YouTube channel, and that's part of the reason why I started the channel as well, because mentally I was a bit lost. I'd done some things, made some choices I wasn't proud of, and I met this guy Chris around about the same time, and oddly enough he was in a very similar situation. Both into bikes, so friendship came pretty easily. And but his dream was to open a bike shop, and he wanted to do that in Aylesbury. But he realised Aylesbury wasn't big enough, and he ended up moving back up to where he had been, Northampton. And this was the shop that he started. It took him a long time, but he got it done. I was on my bike ride up to York, so I stopped off there. This is Northampton, as I say, it was about lunchtime on the first day. And that's a very proud man outside his shop. So, you know, that's that means a lot, that one. Yeah. Next picture. This is Dave Payne. Dave Payne's a local photographer and a YouTuber. He has a photography YouTube channel. I'll put a link to his channel. This was taken with the 100-year-old large format camera with a lens which doesn't have a shutter in it. It does have an aperture control, but it doesn't have a shutter. And so that was a case of setting the lights up, and the lens got a little leather cap on it. I worked out my exposure. I did use a meter for that. I worked out my exposure time, which was about 1.5 seconds, and literally pulled the little lens cap off, put the lens cap back on, and that is a pretty good photo. The lens is also about 100 years old, so that's how they used to do it. This one here, this is not a particularly significant photo in terms of its photographic quality, but it is definitely linked to a memory, because I took that photograph, or as they would say in America, I made that photograph, but I took that photograph and turned around to Mary. This is Freshwater Bay on the Isle of Wight, which is one of the places we used to go to when we were kids together. And I turned around and she told me that the Queen had died. So that sort of sticks in my memory. I was Freshwater Bay taking photographs when the Queen died. That's Freshwater Bay on the Isle of Wight, by the way. This one here, oops. It's a photograph of a model car. I'm not particularly into cars, I'm not particularly into models, I'm not particularly into photographing model cars, anyway. But it was a night at a local camera club that I go to now, which is one of the places I realised I really don't know anything about photography. They have club competitions, internal and external. If you're really good at the internal competitions, you might get forwarded into the external competitions. I'm still putting things into the internal competitions, and my highest score this season is 17. Now that's out of 20, and you get 20 as the high score, and you'll get like a star asterisk above that is the best of the best. So 17, I was pretty pleased with that, but I recently discovered that the scoring starts at 14. So I'm very, very middling, but I am learning an awful lot. And so this photograph is significant because it was taken on a club night down there with a large format camera, not the old one, a newer one. For me that represents learning. So That's why that's in there. Right. Mary, my muse. I wanted to get a 1940s Hollywood style kind of an image. Now I've got that with the film cameras, but as part of that I took this, which is the 15-year-old Pro DSLR, shooting with this little lens on it, 50mm 1.8. And this is the result. This is my movie star Mary. This isn't actually my favourite from those images, but it's Mary's favourite. The pose is her favourite, so that's why I've included that. Glamorous Mary. Yeah. This one is the Mary that we're all more familiar with. This is taken on the Isle of Skye on our holiday. This is sort of June time, and the reason I love this photograph is because it's to me it's evocative of the Enid Blyton era, the famous 5, Secret 7 type adventure. It looks like it's the way I imagined those books when I read them as a child, and it was a momentary snapshot image. I was walking behind Mary fiddling with the camera, and I looked up and she was just about to go over this ridge down towards the ruins of the castle there, and it was just like, wow, that's an image. Click the shutter. Just about had time to sort of review my settings, but only just. And the film camera, actually, it's this one. It's got a light leak on it. It's got a slight fail on the back. It needs fixing. But what that did, it put a light spot down here. Purely by chance, where Mary is, there is a light patch. So you can see in the ground, it's very slightly lighter. Now this one is actually a scan of a print I made. So what I've done is I've sort of worked on that a bit, and I've reduced it up here because it was a band that went all the way up. I've reduced it there, and I've worked on it here, and sort of highlighted Mary a bit. So again, it's all learning, but I love that picture because it's evocative of sort of childhood like notions of adventure. This one is also Isle of Skye. This is digital, and it's taken on the little Canon camera that I am filming you on. You can see it's digital. Course, if I zoom in, it just turns into pixels. But that is that for me. That's the Isle of Skye there, and it was just a stunning country, island, I should say. And we were blessed. We're up there at the same time that Si was. We were blessed with incredible weather, and it was just beautiful. Yeah, really beautiful. This one, this was taken on a 1950s camera. Was out for a walk with Mary. This is Mary's eldest, who doesn't like having his photo taken. But he let me take his photo. He let me take 2 photos of him. One where he's facing the camera and one where he's away from the camera. And I promised him I'd never share the one where he's facing the camera online or anything. That's just for us. But I love this photo. I love the way I mean, he's actually, because it takes me so long to take these photos sometimes, he's deep in thought, and it's kind of forest bathing. I love the way the tree trunk has formed across the gap. I just love that picture. This one was taken with a 100-year-old camera. The lady is a local model. We met her through a charity fashion show, Mary and I, and it was organised by David Payne, who featured in the other thing, so that's how I sort of know her. And I wanted to try some portrait work with the large camera. This was sort of ahead of doing anything with Mary, and you can just see just how, I mean, that's film. People always say things go grainy. I mean, you know, that's not grainy. The resolution of the film is higher than the resolution of the scanner. I mean, that's not even a particularly high resolution. Well, no, actually that's a fairly high resolution scan. But the film resolution, because you're shooting on a negative which is about that size, it's got so much detail in it. And I actually got things right with this, you know, so that's definitely a favourite. This one, this is a racing car. It's not a racing car. It's a very sporty car from probably the 1950s, I think. Maybe it might be earlier than that. But this photograph was taken at the Cop Hill climb. Now that car looks like it's doing about 150 miles an hour. It's actually doing about 30 miles an hour. It's just pulled away from the start line on the Cop Hill climb. And I was stood up on a balcony above it and sort of panned with it with a slow shutter speed, and that's the resulting image. The reason this is in here is because the photograph actually came out as I expected it should come out, so that's really good. This one, this is Wessex photography here in this photo. Good old Joe, there he is. We had a bit of a photography weekend with Paul Bissiker Bushcraft, who also enjoys taking photos, and Ant the Jinx, who is also a photographer. I invited them up to Old Anne's. We had a bit of a camp, a photography weekend. This is a statue of Ronnie Barker, and Ronnie and Joe are both looking at the theatre in Aylesbury. Because Aylesbury Theatre is where Ronnie Barker began his acting career. I just like that photo because of the repetition factor. This photo, same film, same camera, about 5 minutes later. Don't know this lady at all. Street portrait. I was waiting outside the shop for the guys who'd gone in to come out, and this lady came around the corner from the hotel. She was obviously on her way to a very swanky do, and she was on her own, and she wanted me to take a photo of her with her phone, you know, because she saw me with the camera. Oh, would you mind taking a picture? And I said, no, I don't mind at all. And then I asked her, would you mind if I take a picture with my camera? And I'll you know, email you a scan of it. And she agreed, so I snapped away this camera. No, not that camera. Not that camera. This camera. Snapped away. And there's the result. and I sent it to her and she was very grateful, and that's the first time I've actually taken a photo of a stranger on the street, and that's significant for me because I'm quite shy actually around people I don't know, so you know, that's why that one's in there. This one, last photo, this is Trianon Bay in Cornwall, and Mary and I have been fortunate enough to get 3 free holidays down there now, through one of my employers, or one of the people I work for I should say, and this was a large format film photo. It's not the best photo, but it's significant to me because I was experimenting with the lens off a medium format camera, which I just screwed loosely onto the lens board. I was fiddling about. It's the first time I used tilt shift focusing, and you know, it was just everything about that was experimental. In fact, I actually got a result out of it. It was incredible. So there you go. So thanks for watching that, and if you got through to the end, well done. That was my 13, as it turns out, photos for 2022. Here we are in 2023. Make it a good one, and perhaps consider doing what I'm doing and putting a few memories on these old cameras. Take care guys, YouTube's not going to be around forever.